Thanks so much for joining me and clicking on this video today. Today, I'm going to talk about finances. I actually might do a series on banking and finances because there's a lot for us to learn. And a lot of us nowadays, in particular, we're really concerned with our financial future. There's a lot being thrown at us. We're hearing a lot about what the banks are doing. We hear terms like CBDC. We also, a lot of us have hit hard financial times because many people, because of these COVID mandates, were thrown out of their jobs, not able to collect EI. It's been a really, really rough time for people. So, finances and your financial future is really on the brains of many people nowadays. Now, nowadays, a lot of us do hear about precious metals. We hear about buying gold and buying silver. And a lot of people are doing this nowadays because I guess in times of inflation, printed money can lose its purchasing power, whereas they say that gold and metal is a little bit more stable and can provide a little bit of protection. Now, I know nothing about this, but I'm really interested in learning because I hear about this so much. So I wanted to do like a gold buying 101 type of video today. And so I'm very happy to bring my guest on today. His name is Warren Keene. He is the Vice President of Sales at New World Precious Metals. And he's going to join me and he's going to give us the 411 on buying gold and silver. Hello, Warren.
Hi, Anita. Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to your viewers.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm so happy to have you because we hear about this a lot about buying gold and silver, and I don't really have a background in this. And I know you do. I know you have an extensive background in finances. So can you maybe tell us in your mind why is it a good idea to invest for regular people to invest in gold and silver?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why is it a good idea? I always go back to, start with facts and history. Gold and silver has been a store of value for like 5,000 years and used as currency for approximately 2,400 years. So it's got a very solid track record. And it's called many things. One thing it's called is the safe haven asset, the safest asset.
Mhm.
And it really shines in terms of turmoil. Times of turmoil like we have now, like with our financial system in the precarious state it's in, with inflation, that's systemic inflation. We all know when you go to the grocery store, especially energy cost, what it is costing us just to live on a daily basis. And even though the government, they have statistics on what the inflation rate is, they don't really use the basket of goods that they measure the inflation with the same way they used to. And if you measure it that way, including food, including energy, we think it's like double digits. It's not the 4 or 5% perhaps that they're telling you, and it's changing. The recent things. So gold and silver, its primary function really is to protect your wealth. That's what it does very well, right? There's no counterparty risk for gold. And what that means is it doesn't depend on any external entity for its value. For example, maybe you own a business. Well, you need customers coming in the door. Or you own a mutual fund. Well, you need the markets to perform. Gold doesn't need anything. It just sits there. Gold and silver, they sit there. They have intrinsic value. So in times of turmoil like we have today with, geopolitical, even that, we could talk about that. That would be a whole topic. But we know there's the Ukraine war and and all the implications of that, the inflation, and quite frankly, what we say in the industry, we've been kicking the can down the road for a couple of years by papering over fundamental problems in the economy, papering over by printing money. So central banks and together with governments printing money, introducing all kinds of liquidity and years of low interest rates, lowest in 100 years. And now with last year, I know I'm going a bit detailed here, so maybe I'll unwind. I'll just say one more thing. Last year, we increased the interest rates by 5 points in 1 year. That is higher than we've done in 100 years. So there's repercussions of that now. We're seeing problems in the commercial real estate sector, for example. And so on her horizons, the financial situation locally and on a macro world level don't look that good, right? So we're coming into this time that could be potentially very painful for people. And gold and silver, that's when it shines. That's when it's always through history.
Yeah.
Well,
I would say that with inflation, I think that you brought up the Ukraine war, and then we can blame that and Russia on the gas prices, and that's what they want you to believe, but that's not really what it is about at all. Your gas price should never be this high, and raising energy prices, I think, is a very good way to hide inflation. Because it costs more money to transport your groceries. It's hiding inflation. Gas price is a good way to do that. And so you brought up a good point in that lots of things have volatility. Like sometimes we invest in the market and that has volatility, but gold and silver kind of retains its value from what I'm hearing. But what is it? How do people get started buying gold and silver? Like, what would you recommend? Like, there's so many ways you can buy it. You can buy coins, you can buy bullion, you could buy, I don't know, little slabs. What are some of the things that people can buy, and is it a long-term or short-term thing? Are you in it for the long game or the short game? So let's start with that. In what form would you recommend buying gold?
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So many great questions. Right. Well,
Like,
there's
would you
multiple.
recommend a bullion or a
Yeah.
coin or a
Yeah.
slab?
Okay. So, first of all, if you just start it right from the top, we have a choice of gold or silver, right?
Mhm.
Um, we often just talk in terms of gold, but in the past we've had silver standards. Actually, we've had gold standards for governments. Silver was used really early on, in fact, for currency. So, first of all, do we want gold, silver? We want a bit of both.
Mhm.
So we decide on that. I can tell you right now that silver compared to gold is very undervalued. We believe it is, and we're also like we love what we'd like to say is we love gold, but we love silver even more. And
Mm.
this is just in this time period, and the reason is for that is there's a big industrial demand for silver that's there for gold. It's over 50% of industrial demand is for silver as opposed to the monetary demand.
So
Gold
what
has,
does
for
that mean? Like, who needs the silver in terms of industry?
example, read the other day that we believe Tesla has like a kilogram, and a Tesla car, electric car, has about a kilogram of silver. So microelectronics, these computers, Anita, that we're using right now to talk to, they'll have
Mhm.
some silver because it's
Mm.
the most conductive element, right?
Mhm.
Also, it has medical uses which keep growing. So you might have seen in your families, maybe your grandmother, even perhaps grandparents might maybe use colloidal silver. So it has antimicrobial properties. And in fact, I was reading the other day that, if you've ever heard of MSRP, it's an infection. It's a bacteria that's antibiotic resistant, and it can break out sometimes. When I was saying silver, silver is actually works on it. So silver has all these properties, new medical properties, like I said, and so it's in high demand. And we've seen a couple of years of demand overreaching supply, which we've never seen before in a long time. So we decide, gold or silver. Now you're saying what to buy and what things to buy. What we do is like we're brokers, and what we do and what I believe is a good way to start for the average person is to stick with what's called sovereign mints. So what that means is the mint that is produced by the country. And Royal Canadian Mint actually is very well respected around the world. In fact, in the 80s, they came up with what's called 4 nines. So 99.99% purity, super
Mhm.
high level purity, where a lot of other mints around the world have 3 nines, 99.9. I mean, it's still pure 24 karat gold and pure silver. But yeah, so Canada is well respected. The mint, I would say the sovereign mints like the Canadian Mint, the US Mint, the Perth Mint, the Credit Suisse Mint, South African Mint. In fact, South Africa used to produce the majority of the precious metal coinage in the world. So we start there. right?
So
I
first
mean,
you have to start on what do you want? Do you want a little gold? Do you want a little silver? Do you want a little bit of both?
yeah.
And then how much do you want?
How much do you want? And what's our goal? Are we trying to buy it the cheapest we can? And in that case, I'm going to counsel you to get bigger units. So, for example, instead of a 1 ounce bar of silver, we might try a 10 ounce bar of silver, or we might try a 100 ounce bar of silver, right? And so there's that. But is that practical? Is it practical for me to have a big piece of metal, or do I, want coins? Potentially, I'm going to trade with those coins, or maybe some people think we might end up bartering with gold and silver again, right?
Hmm.
So, and maybe, and here's another thing to consider: maybe your
Mhm.
storage area. Now, keep in mind, I'm talking about physical, you owning physically on hand. There's other ways to own gold, but we're starting here with physically owning it, perhaps at your home or your safety deposit box or wherever you're going to store it. So silver, because today, let's just quickly say Canadian retail silver is approximately $40 an ounce. Well, uh, where gold is like 2,700 approximately.
Hmm.
I haven't
Mhm. So
actually checked
silver
the
is a
price.
bit more affordable, to start. So
Yeah, so
if it's like $40 an ounce and you wanna buy 10 ounces, there's a start. And I guess you have to decide, do I wanna keep it at home? Do I wanna keep it somewhere else? Does New World Precious Metals store it for you? Let's say you wanted to do something like that.
yeah,
Is it
we have
okay.
our partners that do that.
Mm,
Why I like working with New World Precious Metals is because we're brokers, so we're not fixed to any solution. We do basically three things. That
mhm,
is, get gold and silver to you at home, like we're
mhm.
talking now. Number two is we take a Canadian registered account, such as an RSP, TFSA, LIRA, those accounts that are registered with the government, and we have a method of holding physical precious metals into your registered account. So you can still get that tax sheltered advantages that you do with a registered account, but you're holding precious metals. And the fourth one, which I think is a great solution, we're maybe one of the 4 or 5 of the brokers that can offer this in North America. It's an international wholesale account. And both those two accounts, Anita,
Mhm.
talked about, well, I call it like this: home is retail, registered accounts is registered, and the international wholesale bullion is wholesale. So retail, registered, wholesale. In the wholesale and the registered, they're both vaulted for you, which means you're
Oh,
not holding them on your person, but they're
right.
vaulted.
Yep.
Both cases, they're fully insured.
Yeah,
You,
but that's an option for people to consider whether you wanna keep it at home, your own safety deposit box, how much you want, or whether you want it to be vaulted. But let's say, for example, I don't own anything, right? And let's say
yeah,
I wanted, I don't know, 10 ounces of silver at 40 bucks an ounce. That's $400 or whatever. Let's say
yeah.
I wanted to make that type of investment, which is a small investment, maybe people could afford that. And then does the market price vary a lot? Like, could you buy it for $40 an ounce and then, ooh, all of a sudden, 6 months later, it's $75 an ounce? Do you see things like that happen, or does it not fluctuate that much?
Yeah, I get okay. So that you're gonna be careful answering that question. So
Okay.
yeah, I do, because it's whenever you talk about projections and stuff. I guess I'll start
Mhm.
off with right now is the financial system is really in a precarious situation, right? We have
Mhm.
debt levels that have never been seen before, where we're fast approaching the time, especially in North America, where the sovereign debt levels of our countries, we're going to approach a level where we don't even collect enough taxes to pay the interest, right?
Mm.
We're
Mhm.
we're in the 30s of trillions of dollars. Just think of that, trillions. How many zeros that is of debt
Yeah.
for the United States, and Canada is per capita is actually worse. And so, because of that, this is when gold and silver shines and has the potential to really increase in value. We believe we're in a secular bull market for precious metals. Secular means it's a multi-year situation, And so we believe, we're going to see great gains on the price of precious metals over the next couple of years. When? Again, I never make predictions that I can't stand to, and I don't think
That's right.
anyone really knows, right?
Yeah.
We like to say we don't have a crystal ball, but we
Yeah.
believe likely, I'd say the next 6 months to 3 years, you're going to see really increases in the price. But again, I can't, nothing for sure. One thing, if we look at history with pricing, we can look at the last two bull markets. Okay, so again, I try to look at history and then bring it forward to now and apply it to today. In 1971, the United States took the dollar off the gold exchange standard, and at that time, gold was fixed at $35 US. So 1971, imagine gold coin $35, silver $1.40.
Mm.
So that we say that was the start of the bull market. We had inflation like we had now. We had global instability. We had the oil embargo, all this, instability around the world. Well, at the top of that bull market in 1980, silver reached $49. So today, this is a spot price. Okay, now spot price, it's another topic, but spot price is $49 US, and today's spot price is 24 approximately for silver US. So it was double. This is what I'm telling you about silver undervalued. It was double the price it is today. 40 years ago, 1980.
That's amazing. That's amazing, because you're saying in 1971 gold was 35 something, and then silver was $1 something, and then in 1980, 9 years later, silver jumped up to be 40 something dollars.
36 time game, and gold reached 850, about a 24 times game.
But then silver went down and it got undervalued or devalued, but now silver is climbing back up again. So that's what you're saying about the waves of stability, right? Like with silver, like it kind of goes up and down, but it's on the climb because people are clamoring for metals now.
Well, it's the safety of it, right? Like the world we live in is, with the currency, it's a fiat currency, and really it depends on you and me, Anita, having trust in and faith in the issuing authority, the government, and saying, like, for example, you give me you buy something from me for $10, I accept it as value because we both believe in the currency that it is worth this much. But because it's not backed by anything, unlike in the past, we've had currencies that were actually backed by gold. We had it in the United States until 1971. We had a gold exchange standard.
Is that when they got rid of the gold standard? Was 71?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, gold exchange standard in 1971. And since then, we've had this ability to basically print money, and we've printed ourselves, in my opinion, to oblivion almost, right? And it's also, we use the United States as an example because they are the world's global reserve currency. There is an effort of de-dollarization of countries moving away from the U.S. Currency. Again, a whole other show, but nonetheless, it is still by far most of the world's trade. I think it's over 50% of the world's trade is still done in the U.S. dollar. But it's not limited to them, this printing of money. It's a global phenomenon, and that if you looked at the balance sheets of India or England, the UK, France, China, Russia, we've all printed money. So we've got this debt-based economy, which is really precarious because it's all this debt that hasn't backed up by anything. And so this is why over the centuries we've had gold-backed currencies and silver-backed currencies. So there's a lot of talk about, will we go back to that? And maybe we will, maybe we won't. We have the rise of the whole digital financial world that's coming. But nonetheless, it's still a value, and it's a universally recognized value. So it's not just, a few countries that recognize the value of gold and silver. It's universal. So every country recognizes the monetary value of these metals.
Right. The world recognizes the monetary value, and when the governments just print money, they almost render it worthless. So it becomes worthless, and the U.S. economy is not in a good way, almost it's their own fault.
On one hand, financially, it's on life support. On the other
Oh.
hand, there's a whole dynamism, I think that's a word, and entrepreneurialism that came from the United States. I think the real issue is we're moving away from a lot of the values that the United States started with, including, well, hard work ethic,
Mhm.
capitalism. I don't think we have capitalism now. We have a lot of regulation. We have a growing government sector and a financial services sector that's grown, which doesn't grown to astronomical proportions that doesn't really necessarily give value. I think, on one hand, the US is really in a precarious state because of levels of debt. So, for example, and it's not just the United States, but look at, we've had 20 years of super low interest rates, lowest interest rates in 100 years, 0%. And it was even negative in some countries for a bit, right? So what that did is really incentivize companies to borrow money at super low rates, and you could prop up companies. I read a stat the other day. They use this term zombie companies, and they think that it was like this gentleman listed 20%. His idea of 20% of the companies out there that we're investing in are just zombie, and they don't have any. They have survived on debt, and now the debt has the debt financing has risen dramatically. Like I said, we've never had 5-6 point interest rate rise in 100 years. So now all these companies are in trouble. We have kicked the can down the road. So you put all this debt and you're really propping up companies that maybe would have never really survived in the past recessions. This is what happens in a capitalist economy. We do have the ups and downs, the cycles, but when you have those downs and companies close, well, then you usually have green shoots because eventually the market returns to a more a stronger equilibrium, let's say, and you have competition again, and you come out of it. But we've just papered over these problems. We've printed so much money, we've devalued and debased our currency, and it's continuing. Here's something for your listeners, Anita, about gold and silver in the banks. So this is a fact. You try to stick with facts. If we look at World Gold Council, this is an independent body who reports on gold usage, right, around the world. Well, we know in 2022, central banks bought more precious metals than they have in many years. I think 1967, and then this year, 2023, the first quarter, that pace continued, and we have central banks buying more than they have in ever before. So if the banks are doing this, right, the central banks are buying this much gold and silver while shedding U.S. Treasuries, the global reserve currency, why aren't you and I? Why is there only 1%, less than 1% ownership of precious metals in North America?
I guess it's a thing. Yeah, it's a good question. I did actually come across that fact too, that central banks bought a record number of gold in 2022, 1,136 tons of gold they bought. I just found that fact somewhere. And it's almost like maybe they're hogging it all so we don't have any because they understand the value. That's very scary. But and it's a commodity a lot of people don't have, but people are starting to think about it. But in your lifetime, in your career, have you seen you've seen some fluctuation, but how would you describe the stability of precious metals? It sounds like it's always been a stable investment. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. I mean, here's a quick one. We could look at say the
Mhm.
last 20 years, from say 2000 to 2020, and we could compare gold. The gold how it's performed against the S&P, right? The big index in the United States. Well, it did about 9% a year. That's darn good, right? It's darn good. If we Financial people can often pick a narrative, a time frame to suit their narrative. In the last 100 years, gold has been the best overall performing asset. Now, if you bought Tesla stocks at the right time, or you bought Amazon stocks, well, no comparison. But gold, as far as an asset class on its own, has performed better than any other asset class. What I like to show people is the dollar, the purchasing power. So essentially, if we look when the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, and we compared it to the purchasing power then to now, the dollar versus gold, gold can still buy exactly what it could before, and actually a little bit more, where the dollar is worth about 3% of its value. There's three things why you would buy gold or silver. Number one is to protect your purchasing power. In times of crisis like we're in now, this is where it really shines. The ultimate safe haven asset, gold and silver. Number two is just a hedge against inflation. So have some in your portfolio as a hedge. I mean, you think of it like insurance, right? You pay money for insurance in case the bad thing happens. Well, you put some in your portfolio in case the bad thing, our economy melts down and you got something of real, true, hard, people say hard assets, real value. Number three is the investment potential. There a few times throughout history, the people that have held gold and silver have really grown their wealth. And this is potentially one of those times. And I use that word because, again, the main reason is to protect your wealth, long-term holdings. In times of crisis, often precious metals throughout history will get revalued. If the central banks around the world have bought more, and they are the leading edge of the financial system, right? If they bought more precious metals in the last 18 months than ever before, and they are reducing their reliance on U.S. treasuries, not every country, but many of the countries, many of the big ones are China, Russia, Japan, they're buying more gold, silver. Wouldn't it make sense for them at some point to perhaps want to revalue gold and silver to their true value against the currencies of the day, which would really wipe out their debts? Because they're awash in debt too, some of these central banks.
Maybe that's why they're hogging it, the BRICS countries.
Right.
And maybe they will spike it up. And so why not have the average person jump on that bandwagon also and have at least a little bit in their portfolio? And Warren, like someone like you, I could talk to you. Like there's so many different topics to talk about in terms of banking and so much to touch on. And I want to bring you back and talk more about it because there's so many topics we can cover because nobody can cover it all in one shot. But I would say this, I'm going to put a link in the description box below. So if somebody wants to click that link and get a hold of you just to ask some questions like, hey, this is how much money I have. This is what I want to do. I know people at New World Precious Metals can help them out, which is great, right? Just give you a call and book an appointment and you can chit chat with them. But the other thing, I want to bring you back because this is what I want to talk about next time. I want to talk about the banks, keeping your gold in the bank and what the banks are doing. And sort of, we've heard things about like bailouts. And you were telling me one day about what a bail-in is. So I want to, in the next episode, I want to talk to people about that and learn more about sort of the banking system because we're almost scared of the banks and what the banks are going to do. And people want to learn. So thank you so much for joining me today. And how can people get a hold of you if they need to?
Yeah, they get a hold of me at warren@newworldpm.com.
Okay, perfect. And also, I'll have a link in the description box below. People can click that and learn more about it. I want to buy some gold too, because you're right. You're making me think earlier, like sometimes my grandma used to take a little bit of gold and rub it on a sty and then put her sty down. Like, I mean, just these old school things people used to do. There's so much more to learn about this world of precious metals. And
I tell people, Anita, I always tell people, I love to shout this from the rooftops. I sincerely believe that I'm helping people. And so I like to just share the knowledge. Of course, it's my profession and I'm a broker and so on. But these things are just really good given today's times, and there's a lot of topics, like you say. I hope it was helpful. Yeah, I love to talk about this stuff. So
yeah, and I know you a little bit because we've chit-chatted a little bit before, and I know that you are interested in helping people. It's not about like a money grubbing type of thing. It's not that at all. It's about how can we make us stronger and rise up against just some of the oppression that's come down on us. That it helps us grow stronger too. So I know that. I know that about you.
financial sovereignty. That's what I think gold and silver is. It's like taking responsibility for, your own path, but because gold and silver is really outside the traditional financial system. So, you don't usually go to a bank and buy gold. There's a few banks in Canada you can now, but for the most part, it's outside the system, and but it has true value, monetary value, and so you're just taking responsibility for your future yourself. And I think that's what we need to do, not rely on governments and banks and everything else. We need banks and we need governments, but let's take some more responsibility for ourselves. And gold and silver are one thing you can do for that.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, you'll help us learn more about it as we do some more broadcasts together. And thanks so much for joining me today. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found value in it, please like and subscribe and share it out. That's how we get the word out there. We are the news network now. If you can make a contribution to my platform, it is so appreciated. You'll find me on PayPal at Anita Keeps Talking. You can donate through my website, anitakrishna.com. You can find me at Give, Send, Go, and all of these links will be provided in the description box below. Thank you so much for your love and support and engagement. I love reading the comments. And just a note, my Rumble channel name is AK Straight Speaks. I know it's a funny name. If I could change it, I would. And on YouTube, I'm simply Anita K. Have a great day, stay strong, and I'll speak to you all in my next video.